All property is worth putting in management effort for the wildlife that inhabit it. Big or small, the process will take time to develop. In this episode, we will focus on a small piece of property and walk you through each step of our initial makeover to transform it into a one-stop shop for wildlife. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of the off season. This week we are changing things up a bit and we're going to focus on small property management. This particular piece that we're going to be working with is 47 acres and about 40 acres of it is tillable. Now this is a piece that I personally bought to build a house on, and I feel that it is an accurate representation of a real life scenario for a lot of hunters and their properties. So what are the necessities that deer need to survive? The answer is food, water, and shelter. So whether you have 5 acres or 500 acres, you need to incorporate those 3 necessities to hold deer on your property. So let's talk about shelter first, or bedding specifically in this case. We can't really create bedding here due to the layout of the property, but we can create cover, which is the next best thing to ensure deer feel safe and calm when feeding. So let's head into the field and show you guys how we are implementing cover on this piece of property. Well, it's a beautiful spring day here in Pennsylvania, and I'm on my personal farm. You know, I bought this farm a couple of years ago, primarily to build my home, but I found out rather quickly after putting a little establishing food plot in last summer and planting some gobbler soft-tooth oak trees and, you know, just putting cameras around the edges that a lot of deer make my property home. You don't need thousands of acres to, you know, attract deer and hold deer on your property. So that's sort of what this whole project is about, showing you guys that small acreage hunting tracts are really gold mines if you put the work in. One deer in particular that I'm putting all this work in for is a deer that I watched all summer long last year. I named him Lefty. He made it through the season, found both of his sheds, and he's just a stud of a Pennsylvania deer. And you know, I'm gonna do everything in my power to make this absolutely perfect, make it a gold mine for deer. Item number 1, we're over here today planting giant miscanthus. If you guys know what miscanthus is, it's basically a root system, put it in the ground and it grows in clusters. And it's you know, super durable, thick. It's basically almost like a bamboo. It's super strong. The wind and snow isn't gonna blow it over. So it's an awesome screening cover. You know, the main reason I want to come out here and do this is 1, you can see behind me there's a highway, and 2, my house is right here. So I could block off some visibility from the house as well as the highway. Those deer are gonna feel more comfortable and want to come out here earlier in the evening. And reason number 2 for planting giant miscanthus, guys, is that is a major improvement for entry and exit. Say I had an elevated blind there, which I will in the future, I can sneak right out of my house, walk right down here, right behind the miscanthus, get up in and get out and head back home without being seen. You know, you wanna have little pressure on this piece of property as possible and make those deer feel comfortable, have them come out here earlier, and hopefully give you better hunting opportunities. The miscanthus, combined with the trees that we planted back in the first few weeks of spring, are going to be perfect for this location to allow deer to feel comfortable when feeding, which brings us to our second necessity, which is food. With most of this property being tillable, we're going to fully exploit that. A big part of small property management is recognize the qualities that your specific property has, and in this case, it is 95% food. I have endless opportunities to utilize early and late season food plots to keep deer hitting this property all season long. So let's head right back into the field and I'll show you guys how I plan on implementing food plots on my property. Okay guys, it is the first week of June. It's, you know, planting season. We got soil prepped. It's probably my favorite time of the year. We talk all the time about it's more than just a trigger pull, and it truly is. We almost love this aspect of it more than the actual hunt. You know, love building habitat. But we're back over on my piece of property here in Indiana, Pennsylvania. We were here in the spring, planted a row of miscanthus across all the border of these food plots that we're going to be planting. But the goal today, as you can see, I got the soil prepped. We have a beautiful soil bed bed, so we're gonna come in here and plant. I'm gonna do some corn on the back side and clover on the front side where I have some really nice huntable trees. But you know, we're gonna go up there, hook the tractor up, you know, sort of explain to you that we're gonna do a temporary screen because the miscanthus takes a couple years to really establish. But you know, I'm excited for this. We're gonna put the puzzle pieces together and come up with an awesome plan for this property. You know, as I touched in the beginning, I don't have a lot of property, but you don't need a lot of property to attract deer and hold deer on your property. You know, I have one deer in particular that I watched 2 years ago as a, you know, really, you know, a small young deer. And to this year, when I found his sheds, this deer put on some serious inches, and he potentially is gonna be my biggest deer ever if I could put an arrow through him. Well guys, we are back over my property for day 2. We thought we were gonna get everything done on day 1, but we ran into a light issue. We did end up getting all the clover and all the corn planted. But one key aspect to this farm that we weren't able to do last night is to spray Deer Go solutions on it, and first coming is the Plot Start from Deer Grow. You guys, this Plot Start is basically liquid lime. It's going to help increase the pH level of your soil 3 times faster than your palatable lime, and it's going to overall, you know, just get the calcium that your plants need into the ground. It's going to help your soil. You know, after this, once we get some growth coming up, we're going to come back here and spray the boost on it. But for now, we're going to spray the Plot Start directly on the exposed soil. But we'll get this in here, spray the whole thing, and we'll be back in about 2 months or so, guys, where we can come back in here, see some growth, have a better understanding of what we planted and why we planted it where. We can sort of look at some stand locations, look at some pinch points, you know, explain to you guys more of why I did what I did. So, you know, let's get this stuff on the ground and get out of here. Well guys, our clover came in great, but our corn barely grew at all. We had a handful of stalks come up, so to rescue this plot, we were going to replace the corn with a brassica blend from our good friends over at Evolved Harvest. This brassica blend is going to give us the late season food source that we are looking for, while still having that clover for potentially an early season food pattern. I want to talk for a minute about deer movement that we've been seeing. We noticed that most of these deer are coming up from a draw directly below the food plot and entering from one specific location. So we went ahead and put a stand location here based on the information from prevailing wind that generally blows this direction. Now when these deer enter, they will have a nice switchgrass buffer that we planted, and then we'll filter right through the clover past our stand location into the brassicas. Now if this was Lefty, he wouldn't make it to the brassicas. Our one last thing we want to implement in this property is a Banks Outdoors water tank in the bottom corner where deer are entering the field, so they will have easy access to water every time they enter the food plot. For more information about the Banks Wild Water System, head over to Season 2, Episode 6 of the off-season, where I talk you guys through each step of the install and why supplemental water is so important. So that's it guys, the stage is set. We hit all 3 necessities that deer need, and with Lefty becoming more frequent and October 1st coming quick, we are super excited to get in a stand. To keep you guys updated on how the hunt for Lefty is going, head over to the Bearded Buck socials, where we'll keep everyone updated daily on how our hunting season's going. I hope you guys have learned something from this episode, and as always, thanks again for watching another episode of The Off Season.